Welcome back. My name is Jenny. Thanks for being here. Today we are going to be making my sourdough chicken pot pie. It is one of my family's favorite recipes. I'm going to walk you through step by step how we make the sourdough pie crust as well as how we make the chicken pot pie. So it is a fairly short video. Let's get started.
The first step to making the sourdough chicken pot pie is to make the sourdough pie crust. So I first start out with grating 2 sticks of butter. That will give us 2 pie crusts. I like to use frozen butter, but very cold butter works well too. And I scrape it out of the grater to get all of the butter I can. Then I'm going to add 125 grams of all-purpose flour, and then a ½ teaspoon of sugar and a ½ teaspoon of sea salt. My 8-year-old daughter requested this for dinner tonight, and I didn't have any chicken cooked or any pie crusts made, but it sounded so delicious. I decided to make some pie crusts in advance and cook up some chicken just so we could have this tonight. So I switched to my pastry cutter to cut up the butter into the flour, and you're looking for a pea-sized crumb. Next I'm going to add 5 grams of vinegar. I always use a scale. It's just so much easier and less mess and more accurate. So the ingredients will be listed with measurements as well. Then I'm going to add 125 grams of sourdough starter discard that came from the fridge. And I'll give that a little stir to kind of get it mixed in. It can be hard to incorporate the sourdough discard into the flour. So you really need to get in there with your hands and kind of pull it all together to turn it into a dough. Once it starts to come together, I will then plop it down on a clean counter. And since I have doubled the recipe and I'm making 2 pie crusts, I'm going to divide this in half. They don't have to be the exact same size. You can just estimate them, but sometimes I like to put them on a scale and just see if they are close. So that is what I'm going to do here. My scale isn't always very clean, so I'm going to cut a piece of saran wrap first and lay that on top of the scale, which I'm using the saran wrap anyways to wrap these pie crusts to put them in the fridge after. So I'm weighing them now. You can't see the scale, but they are pretty close. This one was a little bit bigger, and so I'm just gonna switch that over. And then you're gonna shape them into a disc. Shape a round shape and cover them in saran wrap. You could probably use parchment paper or a tea towel, but they will be going in the fridge for a couple hours to chill. So with the saran wrap over the top, you can roll them out, and this is just going to help to smooth out all the edges and kind of start your round shape, which will make it much easier when you go to roll out your pie crust later. Once they're semi-smooth and in a round shape, I put them in the fridge for 2 hours. For the chicken pot pie, I'm going to start by slicing the vegetables. It is 1 cup of sliced celery, a cup of sliced carrots, and a ½ cup of chopped onions, as well as 1 to 2 cups of sliced mushrooms. I do normally have leftover chicken when I make this recipe, or I will cook it the day before just to make this much quicker and easier. But today I did not have any chicken already made, so I do have some in the oven right now, which I just seasoned with salt and pepper and thyme. You will boil the carrots and celery for 10 minutes until just al dente, and then you drain them and set them aside. The mushrooms I just slice a little bigger because they do cook down. So next I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of butter to a sauteing pan and add all of the mushrooms. They take about 5 minutes to cook down. And then I'll just set them aside. Next, I'm going to add the 3rd cup of butter to a saucepan with the onions. And I will cook those until they begin to caramelize. Once they're beginning to caramelize, I will add a 3rd cup of flour and a teaspoon of salt, as well as a ½ teaspoon of pepper. And then whisk that for about 1 minute. And then I turn the temperature down to medium, and I will start to add my chicken broth. So it's 1 3/4 cup of chicken broth, added just a little at a time and stirring between each addition. Then I'll add the milk. It's 2/3 cup milk. I'm using whole milk here, and give that a stir and let that cook down as well. I'm now dicing up my chicken. It's about 2 cups of chicken. So I'm letting this thicken up until it gets to a good consistency. The pie crusts have now been chilling for about 3 hours, and we're ready to roll them out. So I'm going to start with our bottom pie crust. And I flour the surface well and put flour on top of the pie crust, as well as some flour on the rolling pin. Since we put it in the fridge in a disc shape, it makes it much easier to roll out into a nice round circle.
Yeah, hold on.
Sometimes you need to use a bench scraper to get that up off of the counter, and then I will go and put that into the pie pan, leaving some hanging off the sides to crimp together with the top when we're ready. I'm going to tuck some of this underneath. You can cut it off as well, but I just love this pie crust so much that I like having a little extra pie crust on the edges. So I'm now rolling out the top pie crust just to have it ready after I add our filling. So first I will put down the 2 cups of chicken, add the cooked celery and carrots over the top, and then we'll add our sauteed mushrooms. And top it with our gravy. Sometimes the gravy wants to spill over the side, so I just kind of push it toward the center, try to prevent it from spilling out. And the last step is to cover your pot pie with your second pie crust. Now you can cut the edges or fold them under and kind of crimp them with your bottom pie crust, which I'm doing here. Now Now I cut a few little vent holes, steam holes, and pop it into our preheated oven at 425 with a cookie sheet on the middle rack to help the pie crust cook through. And there we have our sourdough chicken pot pie. Thank you so much for watching.